What's up, everybody? This is Lee at the Fast Lab, and today we have a Fast Lab Fast Tip of the Day. So one prominent issue that we see with a lot of our athletes, everything from our young speed and agility athletes clear up to our elite pro level athletes, is gluteal weakness. And for a lot of these athletes, what we found with our performance testing that we do is it's actually false weakness. So what do I mean by that? Well, here's what I mean. If you've ever been into the Fast Lab or seen some of the other work that I've done, I'm always talking about Newton's third law. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, okay? And so what's happening here is if we're not seeing something happening with the glutes, that's because something is over happening somewhere else, okay? So here's what happens. We have overactivation of the psoas muscle, because if you think about it, we sit too much. We sit when we work, we sit when we eat, we sit when we drive, and our body adapts to that. So it's not just the muscle tightening, it's actually the muscles, the tendons, the ligaments, and everything shortening. So they actually are now turned on and they don't know how to turn themselves off. Which means if my hip flexors, these deep big guys here, are always on, my glutes are going to be in what we call muscle inhibition or in the off mode. So it makes no sense at all to go to the gym and think I've got to build my glutes and you're doing 10,000 glute exercises all the time. Our research has actually shown that you're actually either working your back like a maniac or you're working your hamstrings like a maniac, okay? We don't want either one of those doing the job of the glutes. The glute is the speed and power guy. It's also our main stabilizer for single leg activity. So before we even think about going to the gym and working the glutes, we've got to get rid of the guys calling the shots, which are those overactivated hip flexors. So today is all about how we do that before we start the glute strengthening. Here we go. So when we talk about making a change, we're talking about actually releasing some of these muscles that are overactivated, causing that other inhibited muscle, in this case the glute. So when we talk about releasing, everybody's mind immediately goes to all the toys, foam rollers, myofascial balls, tennis balls, lacrosse balls, we have everything. Basically, what are we doing with these things though? Well, what we're doing is smashing the crap out of things that are already irritated. So it kind of reminds me of when I was younger and I had two older sisters. I constantly irritated them. The more I irritated them, the more irritated they got, but nothing changed. Same way with these. The more we smash these structures, the more unhappy they become, but we're not necessarily changing anything. So it doesn't make sense to continue to smash the crap out of these things and not change anything. So like the age-old, if nothing changes, nothing changes, well, we've got to change that. So the answer is we must engage something to then disengage something. So here's how to use these toys more effectively when it comes to releasing that psoas muscle. So here's how to use our toys more effectively. So I've got Kinsey here to help us out. And what we're going to focus on is her right psoas. I know, in fact, she has an overactivated right psoas, so we're going to address that right now. So instead of just lying on here, going back and forth, and like I said, smashing that structure, which isn't going to change it, she's going to actually use the foam roller as an anchor. So she's going to get in position here. Because she's used to foam rolling, she knows where to find that knot or that sensitive point within the muscle. So she's going to park on that, okay? Now here's the big change. Instead of just lying here, smashing it, decreasing the blood flow to that area, irritating an already irritated structure, what she's going to do is engage the opposite muscle group, in this case the glute maximus. So she's going to bring her hip up into hip extension, fully contracting that glute maximus and then lowering it down slow. Okay. Now she may have to reposition to keep that under that sensitive spot on the psoas, but she's going to go through this about 4 or 5 times, engaging fully and then releasing slowly. Okay. Now, as she's doing this, the foam roller is a big surface. She's not a big girl. Okay. So that may be too big of a surface to really isolate. That's where things like the myofascial balls or lacrosse balls may come into place, so that you can isolate those trigger points or those knots or those areas within the muscle that have the restrictions, where the foam roller can't really isolate it all that well. So same philosophy. Now, once she gets out of there, she's going to immediately, because we release that muscle, she's going to immediately drop into a big lunge stretch with her right leg back. Okay. And remember, we want to stretch more than just that, because that fascia connects us basically from head to toe. So now she's going to put arms up overhead, and actually kind of lean back and away toward me, and she's really going to stretch out that front line. So that's just one example of how to use the toys more effectively, then immediately go into the stretch of that muscle before we get into the strengthening.